So, some exciting news has come about regarding Martin Scorsese's new film project, Killers of the Flower Moon, his first feature-length film with both Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, with whom he has worked with so frequently. Quite a lot of news has been coming out over the past month or so about this film. Filming was supposed to start in March, but that was put on hold due to obviously the coronavirus. Then DiCaprio made an announcement of a charity competition where anyone could win a walk-on role on the film. Then there were some rumours that Paramount were getting cold feet about making the movie, and then the big news that Paramount had dropped the production of the film and were instead going to release the movie theatrically when the film comes out. It will be produced by Apple, and after the movie does its theatrical run, it will come out on Apple's streaming platform. I made a video about this a day or two ago, so I'll try not to repeat too much of what I said, but I need to mention a few things to get to the topic of this video. So Paramount Pictures, the same studio that dropped out of making The Irishman, as it turned out, did in fact opt not to make Scorsese's latest film after things all seemed to be set to go. The reason was largely in part due to the budget needed for Scorsese's flick being in the $180 to $200 million mark, a huge sum for a 1920s set Oklahoma Western, even if it stars DiCaprio and De Niro. Funnily enough, for a studio that has had a contract with Scorsese since 2006, when you think about it, Paramount have hardly financed any Scorsese film since, whether partially or in full. They did produce Shutter Island, and then botched the release, I might add, but Hugo, The Wolf of Wall Street and Silence were only distributed by Paramount, and in the end they had no involvement in The Irishman. So I guess a drama starting with their latest Scorsese collaboration is to be expected, and here it is. It seems like a win-win deal for both Paramount and Apple. Apple is of course doing a Netflix and trying to raise their pedigree by nabbing a film directed by Martin Scorsese off the big film studios, for a price of course. They are likely to get a few Oscar nominations for Killers of the Flower Moon and, dare I say it, a Best Picture win. And Paramount get to attach their name to a Scorsese picture without taking a financial risk. But the big question is, why exactly did Paramount drop out? I seem to be having deja vu because I remember making similar videos when Paramount dropped out of The Irishman, and the answer to the mystery seems to be the same. Scorsese's film is too expensive, too much of a financial risk. But it turns out that wasn't the only reason. In fact, it might not have actually been the main reason for Paramount giving Scorsese the finger again. According to a recent article from thehollywoodreporter.com by Kim Masters, there's a bit more to the Paramount-Apple deal, information which Masters gets from his Hollywood sources. So, after Paramount bought the rights to the film from Imperative Entertainment, they wanted the budget of the film, $180 million at the time, lowered to $150 million. Not really that much of a big deal for a huge film studio, there isn't that much different to those costs. They were still willing to finance it. The sources say that things changed when changes were made to the film's script. Scorsese and DiCaprio apparently made some changes to the structure of the film and to who DiCaprio would be playing. Now I want to talk about this openly, to explain things properly, without having to tiptoe about giving away plot points of the film. So I'll explain first, avoiding spoilers, and then in more detail. Although I will say that I don't think the spoilers are really that much of a big deal, to be honest. Similar to how knowing that Frank Sheeran said he killed Jimmy Hoffa doesn't at all ruin The Irishman. The book by David Grann is a murder mystery, but you find out who did it very quickly. What happens after that is way more interesting. Also, judging by comments made by Martin Scorsese, he isn't interested in the mystery aspect of the film and is more concerned with psychological and spiritual aspects of what can drive a man to commit mass murder. That being said, the short spoiler-free reason as to why Paramount turned down the movie is because Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play the main character, an FBI man who is leading the investigations into numerous murders. Scorsese and DiCaprio then changed their minds and opted to give DiCaprio maybe a smaller role in the film. As quoted by the source, talking about DiCaprio's role, smaller scale, same budget. Now Leonardo DiCaprio is a huge box office draw, and this is one of the reasons why Martin Scorsese always works with him, so that he can get his movies greenlit. Silence was a flop, and Hugo didn't do too well considering the huge budget. And these are the only two films not featuring DiCaprio since Gangs of New York, bar The Irishman obviously, which was a Netflix film, so we can't judge the box office. And every one of Scorsese's DiCaprio movies has been a hit. For Scorsese to demand $200 million and then reveal that Hollywood's biggest star will not be playing the hero, nor maybe even the main character, nor will he be in the film as much as audiences might expect, is why Paramount balked. And not only that, but the style of the film changed from a straightforward murder mystery, something easy to market and enticing for mass audiences, to, and I quote the Hollywood Reporter article, a moody and less commercial character study. So that was the short answer. The long answer, spoilers here for the murder mystery guys, is that Killers of the Flower Moon will tell the tale of the Osage Indians during the 1920s Oklahoma. They became the richest people in the world per capita when oil was discovered on their land, but one by one they started being killed off, and it was clear that someone or some people were bumping off the Osages to get to the oil. The FBI were brought in on one of their very first ever cases. I don't even think they were called the FBI back then, if I remember correctly. And the investigation was led by Tom White. This is the character that Leonardo DiCaprio was originally going to play. The straight man. The kind-hearted cop looking to take down the bad guys. Now there is a man called William Hale who was a good friend to the Osages. He donated money to their causes and he promised them that he'll find the killer. This guy is going to be played by Robert De Niro. He's a powerful man with a lot of cash and strong political ties. It turns out though that he was the one behind the murders, and he orchestrated the deaths of numerous Osages so that the oil rights would pass to his nephew's wife. His nephew, Ernest Burkhart, was married to an Osage woman. He is in on the plot, though a lot more weak-willed than his uncle, and more likely to crack under pressure. This is the character Leonardo DiCaprio will be playing, the nephew of Robert De Niro, a far more complex character than that of Tom White, a character who is torn between the love of his wife and the sinister intentions of his uncle. When the article mentions that the movie will be a moody character study, it is likely the character in question is Ernest Burkhart. It's a perfect character to focus on, just like how The Irishman focused on Frank Sheeran and we got the best of both worlds with the mob and the Teamsters. It looks like the focus of Killers of the Flower Moon might be Burkhart, and we will get the world of the killers and the world of the victims. Again, you can see why the studio doesn't want the pretty boy leading man playing such a vile character who was part of a scheme to have his in-laws murdered. They would much rather he plays the poster boy of the film. The decision to distribute the movie was summarized by a studio insider who told the reporter, "We're not making it, but we're not making it." The source also says, "It's a super low risk way for Paramount to keep some rights in the movie, but it has no upside. You're investing a ton of time. Marty and Leo are demanding. It will take the same energy as opening a tentpole. The upside is $10 million or $20 million. It's an interesting use of time and money." So basically, Paramount won't make much money off the film. But another source said, "It's a low-risk way to be in a Scorsese movie, and if it's an Oscar movie, you're on the invite list." This is brilliant news, in my opinion. My anticipation for the film has skyrocketed. There's so many great things here in between the lines. First of all, Scorsese clearly isn't too interested in making a whodunit movie. I think we would have gotten a good film, but now we have the potential for a great film. Because Scorsese said in an interview a while back that he was restructuring the script to make it less of a detective movie and more of a film exploring the way of thinking of someone complicit in genocide, to dehumanize people and not even think of them as human beings and thus being able to murder them. And when you pair these comments with this new article, this seems like Scorsese is going back to his old way of making films where he focuses on complex characters who commit evil actions, taking us deep into their psyche. In a way, I think there are two kinds of Scorsese films, commercial Scorsese and classic Scorsese. Don't get me wrong, I like films like Shutter Island and The Departed, but for me these are the popcorn Scorsese films. They are the commercial Scorsese pictures. I miss the movies that Scorsese used to make, like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. These character studies that I consider classic Scorsese, and to be fair, The Irishman and Silence fit this mold. I'm assuming DiCaprio will still play the lead role, meaning the complicated Ernest, torn between two worlds, will be the focus, instead of the straight arrow Tom White, adding yet another morally ambiguous protagonist to Scorsese's ever-increasing portfolio. And then you have the fact that room has been made for another film star to take the role of Tom White. It might not be as big of a role as it initially was, but still it would be nice to see Scorsese work with someone he hasn't made a film with before. It's great news all round. The only negative is, and this is of course something in my own opinion, but I don't really rate DiCaprio as highly as many do, and it's likely to be a terrific, complex character, and personally I would want someone more adept in the role who could make it one of the all-time great Scorsese characters, as opposed to just another Leo role. That's just me. Still though, it will be nice to see DiCaprio play a character so wildly different from the ones he usually plays in Scorsese's films. There's no confirmation on whether Ernest Burkhart will be the main character. If he isn't, and the detective White is, then it's another bonus for me, because it would mean DiCaprio would finally be playing someone other than the protagonist in a Scorsese film, a nice change of pace. Much like how his mentor De Niro would often play villains and supporting characters in Marty's movies. It's nice for Scorsese to mix things up a little if he insists on working with the same bunch of actors repeatedly. So it seems Scorsese is utilising these streaming companies who want to gain a foothold in the movie world to make his movies which seem no longer welcome in Hollywood. There was a suggestion in the article that when Paramount allowed Scorsese to ship around the project to other studios, they were essentially calling Scorsese's bluff and hoping everyone else would say no, and Scorsese would have to go back to the original script, not anticipating a company like Apple swooping in and allowing Scorsese to make the film how he wants to make it, much like how Netflix did with The Irishman a few years ago. It will be interesting to see if there are creative differences with Apple, whose chiefs Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlich are TV guys without movie experience, or whether Scorsese will have free reign like he did with Netflix. I'm betting on the latter. Who do you guys think should play Tom White now that the role isn't DiCaprio's? There's loads of people I want Scorsese to work with, but having read the book and knowing that White was a cowboy whose ways are fading in the modern world, I think a perfect pick would be Matthew McConaughey, who Scorsese worked with in The Wolf of Wall Street. Thanks for watching.